Ukraine war is a significant drain on Russian military resources. The situation has reached such a point that hordes of tanks abandoned in the most remote corners of the Russian steppe have resurfaced. Vehicles left to their whims in the open have degraded. Official sources claim that thousands of these assets are available, and considering the figures, there is nothing left but fear for the Russian bear. Many of these tanks can hardly be repaired, and if lucky, they may be cannibalized for their spare parts. The reserves of T-72 and T-80 entered a phase of modernization to keep the invasion on track. However, the ferocity of the combat forces led to the reintroduction of vestiges such as the T-55, T-62, T-64. The question is how long it takes to recapitalize a vehicle from abandonment to optimal service standards. At the moment, 800 T-62s are planned to be modernized in 3 years. The amount may sound overwhelming, but it is far from the necessary levels, seeing the wear and tear of defensive actions. Relegated to a different role, the T-62 will have to meet the requirements expected of a BMP-3 and BMP-2 vehicle, which accompany infantry. Taking into account the balance, we can see that the advantages would be enhanced protection and also a more powerful caliber. Even so, the lower speed and the inability to transport troops mean that the T-62 has certain shortcomings compared to BMPs. Now, knowing T-64s are available, why have the Russians opted for the T-62 anyway? With specifications, the T-62 has an outdated 115mm cannon, while the T-64 uses 125mm ammunition. This is not to say that this vehicle can use the most modern 12.5cm projectiles, as it cannot handle increased chamber pressures. The use of an autoloader is also an advantage for the T-64 because it not only means a smaller crew, but ensures a constant rate of fire as well. It is expected that in combat heat, fatigue will decrease human reloader performance. The cannon of the T-64 also has better agility than its 62 counterparts. Armor is another area where these models differ. Better armor and the option of placing reactive armor are other factors that favor the balance towards the T-64. Seeing that everything seems favorable for the T-64, it is hard to understand why its relegation by the T-62. Our answer lies in the less attractive aspects. The 5 TDF engine of the T-64 turns out to be a major weakness for such a vehicle. In its time, it was an advanced diesel engine with a 2-stroke scheme with pistons of opposite movement. This design has its origins from Nazi Germany. The engine that equipped German heavy bombers at the end of World War II influenced T-64's development. Soviet engineers were stunned by the qualities of German engines and decided to be influenced by their designs. Once the T-64 was developed, this model turned out to be a constant headache. The technical problems seem to be compiled on each other. To date, many of these difficulties have not been resolved. Currently, there are no technicians who know how to work on a tank as complicated to maintain as T-64. Another aspect that demonstrates the complexity of this tank is that the drivers must be officers. It is assumed that this high level of preparation would help cope with such a delicate engine. The parts have not been manufactured in Russia for a long time, so it is difficult to have enough spare parts. To be clear, introducing the T-64 into the Ukraine invasion would put a great deal of strain on Russian supply lines. Despite having some points in its favor, the T-64 has an unacceptable cost for the Russian military. Luckily for the Soviets, the T-72 filled the T-64's shortcomings quickly. Now we come to the question of why the T-62 is a better alternative. The T-62's V55 engine had more reliability. Its simplicity was its greatest strength. Complexities such as compressors and injection cooling were left out. This transforms this tank into a usable but outdated vehicle. The Ukrainians gave fresh life to the discredited T-64 in an industrial effort initiated before the invasion. For the last 30 years, they have been working on their own engine by polishing defects and not taking unnecessary risks. This has facilitated the introduction of the 64 to the Ukrainian army in large numbers. The debate between the Russian General Staff's T-64 and T-62 demonstrates one of the crucial aspects of the tank. Beyond the size of the cannon, the thickness of the armor, or the optics themselves, the reliability rate and the weight in the supply line are equally critical factors. As a result of this war, it is evident that the perfect tank is a combination of several factors. They may have been mighty beasts in their era, but the T-62 and 64 are today at the mercy of modern battlefield heavyweights.